This is the final word, Pakistan Daily, from the roof of the stadium at Lahore. The end of day 4. The test is moving. Options are aplenty. I'm Geoff Lemon. That's Adam Collins. He has to tell you all about today's play in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, we stumbled upon the perfect finish. Australia made 3 for 227, declared, pulling out just after tea. Usman Khawaja made his way to his 12th test ton, 4th since returning to the test team in January. 104 not out, 50-odd for Warner, runs for Lahore and Travis Head went bang, bang before they declared. Left themselves 31 overs on the 4th evening to bowl. They've none for 73. Pakistan, though. Australia drop a chance late, which might be vital tomorrow. Shafiq's still there, batting beautifully. Imam Al-Haq looking to attack. 278 required on the final day, or 10 wickets. All 4 results very much in play.
Very good, very good. I think it was close. And I think this could be close, or it could be a rollover. You never know. I mean, everything could go to hell in the first session tomorrow. But Australia did everything they had to do today. They did it all right to try to set up the game. They resumed this morning, having faced 3 overs last night. They were 120 odd ahead, and they had to push on, get a decent lead, get enough of a lead to declare, and do it quickly enough that they'd leave enough time to bowl Pakistan out in the 4th innings. They did that, batted till just after the tea break. Got exactly 350 ahead and paced it beautifully.
I must say, I felt like I was in perfect harmony with Pat Cummins today at breakfast. I conceived of a scenario where Australia would get exactly 350 ahead with exactly 1 session to go today, and what do you know, that's exactly what happened. Albeit because of the slow over rate, that declaration was into the final session and they didn't get all the overs in. But, you know, it was a decent plan to work to because they didn't need to go too hard early on, but they did. They struck 40-odd runs in the first 40-odd minutes, courtesy of Warner pulling really hard. He hit 12 runs in the first over of the day off Shaheen. I think all of them were pulled into the onside, so that got him away. And then down the other end, Khawaja was able to do as he's done so often in this series and play at his own tempo. They put on 90-odd for the first wicket, with Warner falling just before lunch. And then Labuschagne joins. They effectively do the same thing after lunch. 2 sessions that almost mirrored each other, with the exception of a little bit of hitting about half an hour before tea. Khawaja slowed down just a little bit, which you can forgive him for, before reaching 3 figures. Smith went on to become the quickest player ever to reach 8,000 test runs, doing so in 151 innings. He was out for 17, but that gave Travis Head the chance to come in and hit a 6 and a 4 before declaring exactly 350 ahead. So, like, to that point, they've nailed it. It's just
so far, so good.
It's absolutely so far, so good. The problem is, as we've seen so often in this series, Pakistan's top order are very hard to dislodge, and the new ball isn't doing an awful lot. So they're relying on reverse, which they haven't reached yet, not quite, or the spinners to create an opportunity. And they nearly did, but didn't quite.
All right, well, we'll wind it back to the start of the day. Warner, as you said, going on the attack early. He got up to 51, and then we talked about Mitchell Starc yesterday bowling the ball of the series, the one to Rizwan, that angles in, reverses away, beats the outside edge, hits the top of off stump. That's a left-armer coming around the wicket to a right-hander. Shaheen's a left-armer coming over the wicket to a left-hander, bowls the identical delivery. Just mirror image, obviously, the left-hander and the right-hander, but came in, swung away, top of off, chef's kiss, 51, to the point that even Warner couldn't be mad about it. He was quite jovial and friendly when he was going off, which some people enjoyed and some people didn't. Got a handshake on the way off. Shaheen's got form with that, apparently. He did it to Barber in the PSL, but that's a bit different to a test match. Yeah,
it's probably my anti-Hall of Fame. I didn't really like it. I loved yesterday, by the way. What they got going on is great, but if you've been castled in a test match, even if you are declaration batting in the 3rd innings, it's just that, I mean, you've got to kind of roll with the punches with Warner. Everything he does is 11 out of 10, and so it goes. The relationship with Shaheen, it ends that way for this series. Well, probably, unless he ends up bowling at him tomorrow late in the day, who's to know. But didn't love it, but also didn't hate it enough to get too angry about.
No,
because it was fine bowling.
Maybe it's like when you're watching a TV show and there are a couple of characters who you really want to hook up. You're like, just kiss. It's like that, just.
But they did kiss yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
I didn't want to watch the heavy petting today.
No. Well, and Shaheen gave Warner a little squeeze on the cheek as he went off, which was adorable at the same time. Beautiful piece of bowling, and look, at that stage, it seemed like whatever Pakistan didn't matter too much. Marnus Labuschagne, the opposite. He was furious when he got out. Made 36. played some strange shots, played some reverses, played a big sweep shot that nearly got him out, played another big sweep shot that did get him out, big top edge that was caught in the deep, and he went in throwing his bat around and furious, so maybe he made up for Warner. They balanced each other out. Marnus was too angry for declaration batting, and Warner wasn't angry enough.
Yeah, and look, I really admired the way that Pakistan went about their work today, in that I love the way they slowed the game down. They only bowled 26 overs in the first session and 27 in the second, probably knowing full well that Australia wouldn't get through all of their overs. They're notoriously a team that has a slow over rate. So in a way, through defensive bowling, letting the ball tick over, it worked out pretty well for Pakistan in taking time out of the test. Look, that might backfire tomorrow if they're hunting down 351 and they fall short, but it felt right at the time. And I also like the defensive strategy of bowling into the rough from over the wicket from Noman Ali. It's working for them. He's picked up a couple of wickets that way through the series, and that was the way that Labuschagne went. He couldn't resist the sweep shot out of the rough and caught it deep backward square by Sajid Khan, who'd had a catch dropped off him by Noman Ali in similar circumstances. So
that would have been that was a Hall of Fame nomination. Was that the response? So Sajid seeing Noman let one go through his hands over his head, and Sajid Khan's been very cheery the whole series, but he was angry at that point.
Yeah.
He's like, I have bowled, I think at that stage it was 152 overs in the series for half a dozen wickets, and he was like, just please let me have this one. Didn't get it, but then he takes the catch off Labuschagne, and I hope he was passive aggressive about it.
Yes.
I hope he sort of came in and made some sort of comment just to let his spin partner know that's how you support your fellow spinner.
And then we mentioned Smith in passing before. It's not for nothing that he's first to 8,000, because he hasn't had a great 4 years or three and a half years. But he was so far ahead of the curve and so far ahead of the pack, having averaged, I think it was 74 for 6 years between August 2013 rather, and September 2019. I think I got that right. He was so far ahead that even though he hasn't been quite as productive recently, he still beats Kumar Sangakkara to that mark by one innings, and good on him for it. That's a massive achievement. The fastest to 7,000 and now the fastest to 8,000.
And he's like a distance runner who's just gone out ahead of the pack, and they're starting to reel him in a bit now as he tires towards the back end. But he did what he needed to do, which was go out there and play some inventive shots and slog away. And we haven't talked about Khawaja, which we should. I mean, that innings, I think what stands out about that innings is that nothing stood out. It was peerless. It was almost flawless. I mean, he did get bowled off a no ball, but let's just keep that between you and me. Naseem Shah overstepping again.
I think he nearly started crying when going to fine league. Had his hat over his eyes.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of his test debut back at the Gabba a few years ago. How could it not?
Absolutely. He's got a habit of bowling Australian batsmen off no balls to go on to make hundreds. But aside from that, I mean, Khawaja didn't play any outrageous shots. He picked up the pace as he got towards his 100, had an over where he took 3 boundaries off it to go into the 90s. But his run of form since coming back into the test team, averaging 124, 5 test matches, 400s, a couple of 90s thrown in there as well. He's made 750 odd runs this year because he came in, it's March. They won't get to play too much more test cricket, so he can't do a Joe route because he might get 2 tests in Sri Lanka and then whatever he gets at the start of the Australian summer.
Good point.
But that's about it as far as test matches for Australia will go, unless they shoehorn some other series in there, one of the many postponed series that they somehow squeeze in before the T20 World Cup. So, Khawaja won't get to challenge for that. But I have loved his run of form, and I also think it's nonsense that there are various people saying, why wasn't he in the team all the time for the last 11 or 12 years? Well, it's because he didn't do this. He didn't make runs regularly enough or consistently enough. But it has been wonderful to see his late blossoming. Yeah,
I said on the commentary today that it feels like he started his career again. It's not like that he's had a 2.5 year hiatus and returned. It feels like we're just watching a new cricketer entirely. And that might be a function of having believed it was over. And he said this publicly. He thought, in all probability, he was done. And then to come back this way, it's like he's reborn in a way. Yep. It's not like a guy who's been out of the team for 6 months and back in. It's like he never left. The team did change in his absence, and for most of that stretch of time, it was Tim Payne as captain and then Pat Cummins through the Ashes until they turned to him for the 4th test at Sydney. But as you say, his run's ridiculous. He averaged 165 in this series. He made 496. Only Mark Taylor's made more runs in a 3-test series in Pakistan. That goes back to 1998, of course. And his
was not
batting
out.
average, and was not out. His lowest score in this series was 44 not out. when they were declaration batting at Karachi last week. It's astonishing.
I think what also stands out is he makes first innings and second innings runs in this streak. So had they batted another couple of overs today, he would have had 3 tests out of 5 where he'd made over 200 runs in the test match.
Yeah, I suppose that's right.
And at Pindi, he only batted once and made 97. So
I wish he had a chance to make 4 more runs to crack the 500. That was a bit of a frustration for me, even though I was keen on 350 rather. I wouldn't have minded 355 just to get over that hurdle. But his batting average has gone up 7 entire runs in the space of time that he's returned in 5 test matches, 9 hits. That's so hard to do this deep into your career. But stepping back even further, he's now got 12 tons in 49 test matches. That is a great clip by any standard. When you look back at the greats of Australian cricket, many of whom played 100 test matches, if they had have reached, let's extrapolate this out, he won't play 100 tests, but if he were to, getting to sort of 24, 25 tons, that puts him right at the very top of Australian cricket when averaging 47. Now,
that's again, close to Smith, Warner sort of territory.
Yeah, it's right there and thereabouts. Now, that's not going to happen for him, but it's a reminder of the sort of run he's on and this second act or third act or fifth act or whatever it is. I see no reason why it won't last, because, as I say, he feels like a new cricketer at age 35, and who knows where this ends, but it's brilliant so far.
Inshallah, he's been reborn. And then Pakistan. Okay, I've really enjoyed this Pakistan team in this series because they don't quit. They haven't given up. They've had times where they're down and out. They did it in Karachi, fought back that crazy draw, batting out 170 plus overs. The way they went into the huddle here after they bowled Australia out the first time, geeing each other up. They looked flat at times in the bowling effort today, and I thought this might be the point where the shoulders drop and they're a bit over it. But then the way they come out after having another day in the field, coming out and just playing the way that they did, it wasn't just defensive batting. There was aggressive stuff. Abdullah Shafiq came down the wicket, hit Mitchell Swepson for 6 down the ground. Imam Ul-Haq played some aggressive shots. Anytime Nathan Lyon dropped short, backed away, played the cut shot, whipped through mid-wicket. Didn't over-attack, but they were positive. So the point that they reached the end of the day, they've got that target down from 350 to 280, and it's possible tomorrow.
Look, if the dream sequence for Australia was 350 ahead and declare, this is about perfect for Pakistan as well. As you say, they've knocked off 73 of the 351 they need. They've done so with a minimum of fuss. They've been able to bat in a way that looks like they're set against spin. And look, Nathan Lyon bowled some balls that absolutely ragged. This is not the same pitch as Karachi. There will be moments tomorrow when balls spit violently out of the rough. There will be opportunities created. Whether they take them or not, different story. Like, Australia cannot panic when they go to bed this evening, right? But none for 73 is one hell of a base to work from tomorrow, especially with Shafiq, who looks completely at peace with the world. The only mistake he made was from the penultimate delivery of the day when playing a relatively expansive drive off Labuschagne, who was thrown the ball to finish, and the outside edge goes in, not quite into the hand of Smith, but moving to his left. Always a tough chance when a first slip to a spinner's going left with a right-hander.
That's happened 3 times in the same match. Exactly the same spot between the keeper and the slip. Each time's been the same. Smith puts his left hand out, isn't quick enough, and I feel like it's hard. It's harsh to blame him for it. But how have they hit that spot exactly 3 different times?
I mean, and especially when it's from a drive, so it has carried. It's not like it's soft hands and he has to move, or like it's been in the first innings, that one that went between him and Carey off. I suppose it was Pat Cummins that, as I said on the show at the time, never really was in play for that one due to how close he was. This was conventional standing at slip stuff, but it just didn't go in. So again, that's emblematic of what we've seen quite a lot with Australia, where the half chances, with the exception of yesterday with Pat Cummins, the half chances haven't gone their way, and they're going to need them to go their way tomorrow, because I think I made this point last week. Catches will come on day 5. It's just that often they're harder to snaffle because there's far more going on around the bat. They might need to create 12 or 15 chances tomorrow based on what we've seen in this series and what they would have given for one of those to break their way tonight. Not to be, and Steve Smith walking off the field was gutted. Usman Khawaja had his arm around him. He's going to have to, put that to the back of his mind, because they're going to need Smith at slip tomorrow.
Should Cummins have bowled Labuschagne more? We've had a lot of praise for his captaincy, but that's the one thing where in Karachi, Labuschagne bowled that over late. It suddenly looked really dangerous, and it was too late, basically. Coming on and bowling that good over here. He's not reliable necessarily, but he does make things happen in a non-Swepson sort of way. That's
how I feel. And that's not to discredit Swepson, by the way, who, he was a bit flat today. Maybe he's still a little bit nervous, I'm not sure, but and he does provide a relentless attack on the stumps. You can't question that. I mean, whether you think he bowls too short or too quickly or too flat, he's always got the stumps in play. So that is something for a wrist spinner. He's accurate, right? Labuschagne's not an accurate spinner, and that's a good thing. Sometimes the best thing about a leg spinner is their volatility. Stuart McGill showed this through his career. The fact that he would bowl an unplayable, then a half tracker and a full toss all in the same over made him so difficult to face. Point of difference to Warne. So that's what that's what Labuschagne brings by contrast to Swepson. So I think they should both get an extended go tomorrow. They shouldn't just throw the ball to Marnus when they think all is gone and it's kind of last chance cafe. I'd use him more often than that.
Yeah, I would like to see him get a little bit more, not with the seam up. Put the seam up away,
that's
please.
Right.
Hall of Fame, should we come to that? What jumped out at you as a final word moment? I thought Steve Smith playing the switch hit.
Yeah.
That stood out, and getting dropped off it by Azhar
Yes.
Ali.
Oh, gosh.
Now, it wasn't so Bharat and I discussed this. We agreed we don't call it a full switch hit because he didn't swap his hands. For a Kevin Peterson, Glenn Maxwell kind of switch hit, you have to swap the hands over. But he did swap the stance, become a left-hander, and play a sort of cack-handed smack over wide long on. Azhar Ali underneath it, doing these ones, fingers up, nice technique, hit the heels of the hands and popped out. But I'd never thought I'd see that.
Yeah, it was hot out there. I went and sat outside to watch the last few Khawaja runs, and I was on commentary when that drop catch went down, and that was my first thought. They'd be pretty tired boys out there, as the Australians will be tomorrow. But yeah, that's very worthy. I think the sunset, I've just watched him. If you're watching on YouTube, you might have wondered why I was looking out to my left quite a bit during this video. Unfortunately, we won't be able to document the sun bit because it's gone behind the clouds, but that was utterly gorgeous, the smog, that's right. And it's a privilege to be up on the roof of this ground, the mosque over there, which is called it's the Stadium Mosque, and the old dirty roofs here that probably could do with a clean at some point, but it adds to the beauty of this stadium. I mentioned the light towers from the other grounds a couple of nights ago. There's the hockey stadium just over between Geoff and me, which is probably bigger than the cricket stadium. So yeah, and there's the athletics track that way. There's the football stadium over there. So it's a great complex. You would call it a complex because there's so much going on inside the walls here. And
the birds circling overhead that would strip the flesh from our bones in minutes if we were to drop dead on this roof.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm kind of in a way feeling a bit melancholy on the basis that it's my last night in Pakistan because I'm flying home back to London after the close tomorrow. But between now and then, Geoff, we have potentially something special. Both teams can win. Could be a tie, could be a draw. Who's to know? But whenever you finish a series like this, you've got to watch the final day. I cannot wait. Australia did the business yesterday. Pakistan responded in kind when they needed to with the bat today. All set up. Follow it all with Geoff and me.
Big nil all. Yeah. Bring on the nil all.
Follow it all with us on commentary through the day. And then at the close of play, we'll be here probably on the roof again for the final word, Pakistan Daily. And if you really like what we do and you really want to support us, patreon.com/the final word. Goodbye from Lahore.
Night.